Hey guys, we're just waiting on a few more people, but in the meantime, if you guys can click that QR code or go to that link there. Let me just get the banner up and pop this code in. So if you click that link there, you can get a few free resources courtesy of Microsoft. And it's going to register interest with us, and we'll be able to provide you with more of these sessions in the future as well. And just as an introduction, before we get started, so thank you everyone for coming and joining at our last session of Ishan's IoT series. This one will be getting started with IoT Central and Digital Twin, and we will be looking at how fully managed IoT services in Azure can be used to cut down the cost and deployment times. And thank you again, Ishan, for taking the time and your knowledge to give us these sessions.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So if you want to take it away there.
Yeah, sure. Let's start. So yeah, so as Dana said, so we're going to talk more about IoT Central and Digital Twin, and this is my last session on IoT, at least for now. Maybe we have something in future. My name is Ishan Jain, and I am Cloud Solution Architect for Data and AI at Microsoft. So this is a high-level agenda. So I will start with a little quick recap of previous two sessions. So to get up to speed, if you're watching the first time, then I will talk more about IoT Central and go into Digital Twin and what they are and what the benefits of them. And if the demo gods are willing today, I will try to demo both Digital Twins and IoT Central. So a little bit of recap for IoT Hub. So we do have recorded session, and you can find the recording and my notes and the deck and everything on this page. So let's recap. Azure IoT Hub enables secure and reliable communication between your IoT solutions and the devices it has to manage. It can also help you to write device data securely and scale the solution and integrate with other services. And it's not just limited to Azure. You can actually integrate with other services outside of Azure. So at the left side, we have things, so that it can be any type of sensors or devices which sends the data to IoT Hub. And then IoT Hub can send the data to different services for like insights, monitoring, and control. Then we have, last week I talked about Azure IoT Dev Kit. So it's a little device. And again, you can find the recording and deck and everything on this site. What is Azure IoT Dev Kit? It's a little SoC very similar to something like Node MCU or BBC Microbit, or almost like Raspberry Pi-ish. It is based on an STM32 chip from ST Microelectronics. And IoT and DevKit is actually fully compatible with the Arduino, which means that you can use Arduino IDE and most of the libraries made for Arduino boards. And the best part with this dev kit is it actually has a lot of sensors built in. Like it has temperature, motion sensor, pressure, humidity. It even got a little OLED screen, a bunch of IOPS, GPIO, sorry, and then you have Wi-Fi, so you can actually connect to the internet without any extra hardware. So let's get into what is IoT Central. So IoT Central is a SaaS application that helps you to bootstrap IoT projects much quicker. It does that by bridging the gap between the business applications and the IoT data you have. It can be used to create a centralized managed portal for the IoT solution. And it also has capability to create device templates and can also, with help of services like DPS, device provisioning services, it can also auto-provision devices. And because IoT Central is built on top of other Azure services, it is very scalable. And you don't need to think about how to scale it, when to scale it. It does it automatically. It can also be used for creating white label solutions. I will get back on that later. So what can IoT Central do for devices? So IoT Central can be used to provision, configure, and manage the devices. And if we use things like DPS, so device provisioning services and device templates, you can actually achieve a plug-and-play solution. So you plug in a device, it has the right configuration on it, and then it automatically starts sending data to IoT Central. It registers itself and everything. It's done automatically. And if we talk about the white label solutions, so IoT Central allows administrators to create and customize the UI and dashboards. You can set up the rules and actions based on, or you can set up rules and actions based on the rules to create a fully automated solution. So if something like a temperature sensor is reporting some higher temperature than you want, for example, in a freezer, then you can send an alert like in form of an email or anything else to the person concerned, or maybe even create a support ticket that it's need to be fixed. And together with like you can define devices and so on. So IoT Central can be used to provide a fully managed white label solution. And what if you look at the digital twin, which can be used in combination with IoT Central, but let's look at the digital twin as it is. Digital twin provides a digital copy of real-world objects that can be used to simulate them. So it can be anything or any place or any process even, or even sometimes even people. So like if you think today we have so much medical equipment. So maybe we want to monitor somebody's pulse, heart rate, and so on. So we can actually create a not precisely a twin of the person, but a digital representation of the person, and plot these and show this value at the right place on the anatomy. And digital twin can be used to understand, control, and simulate, analyze, and even improve a real-life object. And the best value for digital twin is actually it accelerate time to value. So a digital twin can get the device telemetry or IoT data from anywhere. You can use things like IoT Hub to get the device data from devices or the edge gateways. You can use functions, logic apps, or REST API to get the data from systems like ERP, CRM, any LOB system. Once the data is in digital twin, it can be used to replay in a simulation. Or other services in Azure, for example, machine learning, Power BI can be used to provide better insights, predictions, and even visualizations. So you can use the data to either create like dashboards, reports, or even command centers. So let's take an example. So let's say we have this aeroplane, and we have tons of sensors on it. And we can take this aeroplane and the sensors, and we can create a digital copy of the plane, aka a digital twin. So let's say we have sensors on the engine, a bunch of sensors, engine measuring temperatures, air pressure, airspeed, yada, yada, yada. We can have sensors in a bunch of places in the cabin, for example, measuring the pressure again, humidity, the temperature, everything you need to make a journey comfortable. We can have similar sensors in the cargo hold to see how the temperature is holding. So if you have any sensitive stuff in cargo hold, that doesn't get spoiled. And on other bunch of sensors anywhere on this plane. Once we upload the data, either in real time, like now you can have Wi-Fi on board, or if the plane is on ground, we can then create a digital twin of the plane, and we can replay all the telemetry it got during the flight. So you can simulate the whole flight and see what was going on during the flight. And if we take it a step further, after like several flights, we have enough data to maybe even run a machine learning model on it, or rather run machine learning so that we can create an AI model for it. And then once we have achieved that, we can then actually do real-time simulations on it, or more advanced simulations, like we can change a couple of parameters and see how the whole thing behaves. And thus, without even leaving the like your comfort of your office, you can do all the simulations. And in turn, it is much both cheaper and faster than if we need to tweak a parameter, take it in the air, see what happens, and then down again, change another thing, and so on. So that's why I say that digital twin actually accelerates time to value. Let's see if demo works today. So let's start with Azure Portal, and let's try to create a service with digital twin. So because I chose to create it from the resource script, it just pre-filled a couple of values, and I am in North Europe. So let's just do North Europe. And resource name, let's call it twin CLL. Okay. Public endpoint will be fine because I don't want to put on VPN from my computer. Manage identity, sure, why not? So that I don't need to manage anything else regarding identity. Tags, skip it. Let's create it. Shouldn't take too long. There we go. So from here, I need the host name, which I copied. And I need to add some permissions so that I can actually send data. So what I want to do is a data owner role to myself. So, and now we can go to Visual Studio where I have a simulation. I copied the data, so I will add that URL here. In the application settings, add the instance URL. And I will do a quick change to my model. I'm just adding some more relationships because we will need them later on. And because I'm doing that, I'm also giving a new version. So there we go. And we should be able to just run it now. And there we go. So this is a more of an example application how digital twin works. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to create something more visual. So I will be doing everything from command line. So if you issue a help command, it shows you what it is capable of. So we will start by actually creating the models for the room and the floor. So that is create models, room and floor. And these are the files I have in under my models called floor and room. So let's go there. Okay, let's stop it. Change it to HTTPS and then rerun. Create models again for room and floor. Hopefully it works now. There we go. And now we can create a twin for these things with the command create digital twin. The explicit ID for it. And then version of what I want to do. The name is room 0 in this case. Room name is type key string, and I'm putting value room 0. And we have temperature, which is of type double. So let's call it 21. And then we have humidity level, which is also of type double. And let's give it a humidity of 30. And maybe I should also spell it correctly. There we go. We have created our one room, and let's create a second room. So we're giving it a temperature of 26 and a humidity of 60. Now we need to create a twin for the floors. So let's do it like this. Create digital twin DTMI, because we didn't edit it, so it's still on 1, and call it floor 0. Done, and we can create one more floor because in this example, I need 2 floors. Now let's say we want to update something that we have done before. So maybe I want to call my room 0 instead of room 0, I want to call it conference room. And my room 1, I will like to call it auditorium, maybe because it's a more public events place. So now when I do something called get digital twin room 0, because that's the ID we defined it, so we can get JSON notation of how it's represented as a twin. So we have the temperature, we have humidity, and we have the room name. So if we do for room 1, it's an auditorium with 26 degrees Celsius temperature and 60% humidity. Now I would like to tell the twin that, or tell the service that my room 0 is on floor 0. So that can be done with create relationship, what contains what, and then the name of the relationship. There. So then I can do the next one. And I might even want to say that my room 1 is actually spanning over 2 floors because it's auditorium. So it might be spanning over 2 floors. So let's add that one. So floor 0 also have room 1. So if I do get relationships on floor 0, I see that it has both room 0 and room 1. But if I do only on floor 1, it only has one, just the room on it. And I can see the relationship on the room itself. So we see it's in floor 0. But this is all fine. But maybe we need is more to do more query. So I can just type command query and it will actually show me everything that's in the service, digital twin service. But maybe I just want to see my rooms with this notation. So I can just write, select star from digital twins, T where is of model T, comma, and this. And similarly, I can do some more advanced queries where I can do joins and relate, so that I can do join on a related where the room contains where the ID is floor 0. So I can get the full definition of the floor with the rooms on it. But what if I want to see if there is a room which exceeds a certain temperature? So I can do something like select star from digital twins T, where T dot temperature is more than 25. So it is very similar to your standard SQL. So here I see auditorium is over 26, but if I do anything which is under 25, I can see that my conference room is only 21 degrees Celsius. So that's a quick demo on some of the capabilities you can have with digital twins. Like now I have a lot of data in it. Let's assume that I have a lot of data in it so that I can actually visualize it and maybe even draw a floor plan. This room has this temperature, right now this room has this. And then if we have historical data, we can actually see how maybe the humidity can affect the temperature. Now let's move on to the IoT Central. Yeah. So I will go back to my resource group, and in there I will create a new IoT Central app. So I give it a name. It chooses my URL for that, which description I want to put it in, and which resource group, and what plan I want to do. It is important to choose right plan because you are built according to that. So if you use something like tier 0, so you have access to 2 free devices, which includes 400 messages. And if you go over that, you will have to pay 7 cents per 1,000 messages. Just think about it. If you send data maybe every half a second, so twice a minute, it will be about 90,000 messages per day. Or sorry, per month. So this is even like standard 2 doesn't include that, but now we know it costs that much, so we can plan ahead. In this case, I only need standard 0, and I will actually use a custom application. And because I'm in Europe, so I will use location Europe. You can use, as it says here, there is a free trial for 7 days, but because I have already used it, so I don't have access to anymore. So let's create the application. Should be quite fast. There we go. Now we can go to the resource. And if I copy this URL and paste it in my browser, I come to a pre-built portal for my whole solution. As I talked about, in IoT Central, you can define a lot of device templates. So let's start by creating a device template. Let's choose something I'm familiar with, the IoT dev kit, which is AZ3166. Let's choose that one. And then create. So now we have the definition for the device. We can see it has a lot of parameters. It can store device information. And we have some pre-built views. The overview view will show a graph of temperature, humidity, pressure, and gyroscope. We have some values on that, and so on. And in about, we can see some of other stuff like manufacturer, processor name, manufacturer, and so on. So, and it's published. Good. Draft items. Yep. published. So now if I go to devices, I can create and I go into MX chip device. I can create a new device, and we can just keep the same device ID and so on. And let's say that it's a simulated device. By simulating, I can show the capability, but I don't need to have an actual device at hand for now. So now if I go in there, and it says it's waiting for data. So if we go in raw data, we see there's nothing here for now. So it will take some time to generate some data. So while it does that, let's just create a new device, fully custom. I want to do it IoT. Next, customize, want to call it thermostat, and then next, and create. And I have actually already a model in mind, so I will just take that model and put it in there. This is just to expedite the whole process. So we can see now the thermostat has a temperature, it has a target temperature, it has a property where it tells what has been the max temperature since the last boot, and then we can get a min-max report. And if we go into views, we can either create our own views, or we can just click on generate default views. It will actually try to understand the data and generate a view for us. So there we go. Now we have the views. And before I can use the device, I need to publish the whole definition or the template. So let's do that. There we go. So if we go into device templates, I can see now I have two templates, and here's my thermostat. And now if I go back to devices, I see I have two different type of devices. One is MX chip, and it's now provisioned, and then I have an empty container with thermostat. Let's go back and look at this one. We see now it has some telemetry, and let's see if it's populates. So yeah, so now we can see it's actually populating the data. So this is how you can actually you can create a dashboard or even a command center from here. So maybe you want to monitor this, how the temperature, humidity, and all this. So you can go into full screen, and then you can go back to the dashboard. If you go in about, we can see that it has 72 KB of memory. It has 30 KB of, or maybe it's 30 MB of storage. It has a processor of QHIC. And then it already filled in some manufacturer, process manufacturer. And if you have worked with Lorem Ipsum, you can see that these are just random generated text. And if you go into commands, we can actually see, we can actually set a state for the LED. But because we don't have an actual device, so I cannot show you that for now. But yeah. And we can also change the display text on the display. But here we can see that some data is coming. This was prediction, the dotted line, and then here's the actual data. And if we see in here, so we have a bunch of telemetry. So if you go back to devices and thermostat, we can actually create our own thermostat. Yep, let's start by creating a simulated one. And then let's create one which is not simulated. And if I go to the one which is not simulated, I have an extra button called connect. So now I can click on that, and I get a bunch of IDs. So if I go to a simple example I have on a thermostat, a simulator basically. So I can just copy this ID, the scope, put it in the scope. I can take device ID from here and put it into device ID, and then I can copy one of the keys and put it in the keys. And that's all the configuration I need to do. And now I can just start the application or the simulator for the thermostat. And now we can see here that it is sending that it had this max temperature was this much since last reboot, and it is sending a temperature. And if we go back to the portal, we can see in raw data, we are getting some telemetry. And if you go to overview, it is actually starting to draw the line. And because it's just a simple thermostat, we only have one graph and one value. And here we see that the temperature dropped by about a half a degree. So if we go back here, raw data, we can see now there's a raw data of temperature drop, and we can see that also reflected in the graph. Yeah, so it's taking average, I guess. So here's the average of past 12 hours. And so this is very quickly to show how we can simulate something. But if we go to something, this button here, IoT Central, go back to everything. So it shows me how many apps I have. And I can go in and go under build and actually use one of the white label solutions, which is already there. So let's say I want to create something for connected logistics because I want to track my shipments. So all I need to do is click on create app and fill in all this information, and it will create the app. Because I want you to have some simulated data, so I already did that. So it's here, traders. And here they have created a custom dashboard where we can see how my packages have traveled on trucks and on ships. And we can see one of the sensors is offline and it's on land. So here we have a full-on dashboard on how we can actually monitor our devices with help of IoT Central. Again, this has one device template, which is logistics gateway. It has a bunch of parameters and properties and telemetry and some views. So if we go to devices, we can actually go to one of the devices. Let's say this one, SN100. And we can say it's online, and transportation mode currently is train for my package. The sensor has 45% battery and total tags. How many tags have I lost and how many of them are active? And here I can draw a graph. But if I want to go maybe a bit more, so here I can also set some values, like I want, for me, it needs to have 20% humidity, 20% Celsius degree Celsius in temperature, and so on. And that's how easily you can actually provide a white label solution in Active Directory, or sorry, in IoT Central. And if we do telemetry, we can analytics, we can choose telemetry, we can go in. We can see how the transportation mode has changed, group by, none, and analyze. So it shows different type of, maybe transportation mode is not the best. Let's do something like humidity. So we can see how humidity actually fluctuated during different times. And here we also have some rules. So if a gateway gets lost or there's a theft in a gateway or something, so we can actually create alerts on that. So if you go into lost gateway alerts, so we can see that if the battery level is 0, we define it as a lost gateway, and then we send an email. And here down you can see what other options you have for different actions. You can send an email, you can create a webhook. So webhook can actually, with the help of a webhook, you can send data to Teams or Slack or some other monitoring system. Or if you want to do it with Azure Monitor, so you can hook in there. Or if you want to do Power Automate or Logic Apps, which then in turn provides a lot more customization options. So, Dana, do we have any questions today? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Hey guys, thanks so much for that. So we're on a bit of a delay, so if any questions come in, it might take us a bit to see, but just pop your questions in the comment box if you do. And in the meantime, I do have a question, Ishan, for you. I know there's so many applications for IoT devices that even I can think of, but are you seeing it used even more so now with COVID, where human to human interaction should be at a minimum?
Yeah, so any internet enabled device is IoT device.
Yeah.
Like if you have ever been to Aldi here, they have this red and green signal. It measures how many people are going in and how many people are going out. Yeah. So these are prime example of COVID-related IoT solutions.
Yeah. And is the scaling by a lot more nowadays, or?
I mean, we have seen a fluctuation, yes, but it was meant to be maybe over the next 5 years, which has shifted now because people are not interacting as much. But
yeah, sure.
But we knew this was going to come sooner or later anyway, the fluctuation.
Yeah, fair. I don't think there's any more questions there. But that was really good. That was very interesting. It seems like the demo gods smiled upon you today and everything was working well. But that's amazing. Thank you so much. And that was a very informative journey. And I think especially the demos really helped for sure. I think it's one thing to talk about IoT and then seeing another thing, having the device, looking at the dashboard, actually having data. I know it's simulated. Yeah, but that was very interesting because as someone who's never.
If I had more than a week between these two sessions, I might have created an actual where I actually displayed a digital twin working in a more visual way.
Yeah. It's definitely. I mean, the visualness I think really popped. This is someone who's never even used a Raspberry Pi. I'm like, okay, this looks interesting. This looks doable. Yeah, that's very good. Thank you so much, Ishan. And thanks everyone for attending these as well. And I know you have a Azure workshop coming up.
Yeah, so we do have an IoT workshop coming up on 20th of March. It is a Saturday, and we chose it so that more people can attend. And it is going to be, I think, 6-hour workshop. So it's a and you will have possibility to actually try some of these tools hands-on.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great.
And again, a lot of these examples I takes out from Azure Architecture Center. If you want to learn, the best place is docs.microsoft.com/learn. And again, docs.microsoft.com is where I actually gather my knowledge. And if you don't have any free trial or Azure account, just get a free trial on azure.com.
That's brilliant.
And I have created a blog post for the whole series, so you can actually see, I will post the today's deck and a video link to as soon as I can. So you will have access to all of these three on this page.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank
again, yep, I'm gonna pop the broadcast down now.